Oh my gosh, I'm watching two lizards. I think they're making love. This is awkward. Wander Wealthy Podcast, episode 110. Hello, my loves. Welcome back to another episode of the Wander Wealthy Podcast. My name is Tess. I'm the host of this show. And if you're new, Wander Wealthy is a resource center coaching practice helping online entrepreneurs make more money and manage their money with ease, both in their personal lives and in their business. Today, we're talking about how to get unstuck by setting big, massive revenue goals. So that's something that we're going to dive into in a second, but I just wanted to do a little personal life update, because it's my podcast. I like to share a little bit of my personal happenings with you all. And basically I'm doing this because if it sounds a little echoey, if you hear some birds chirping, if I get interrupted by a random Italian neighbor, it's because we are spending the month of June in southern Italy. So I'm sitting here in the kitchen of our rental house. Doors are wide open. That's how we get the natural light. That's how we get a nice cool breeze. And the birds are chirping. I'm watching lizards run by outside on the patio. If you listen really carefully, you can hear the sea. And it's just lovely. This is something that my fiance and I are doing as part of kind of an active manifestation for our dream life. We've done a lot of talking and goal setting and, laying out our core values and really envisioning what our dream life would ultimately be. And one of them is to own a home by the sea in his hometown and be able to do that for, 3 to 6 months out of the year to come visit here and just be in southern Italy. So we both have work from home, fairly location independent jobs, careers. Mine, obviously so. His a little more structured, but he is a home-based employee of a company. And so we have some kind of flexibility that we're able to get out of Milan and do a month in Salento. So that is what we're doing to kind of practice this. But also, it's almost like we are embodying what we would like to be doing more full-time in the future. So just a little bit of a life update. It's hard to make these commitments to yourself, to make some bigger changes and start actively embodying some of your big visions. But I find that once you start taking action, that's when the things really start falling into place. Once you make those commitments, even though, it might come at a monetary cost or time and energy, or you're going to come up with all these problems that are going to occur. For instance, at this rental house, we don't have great internet. So we have to come up with alternatives of what we're going to do when we do have video-based calls, because the bandwidth that we have here is just not great. Luckily, his mom is our neighbor. She has great internet. So we just have to, travel back and forth. And so being solution-oriented and figuring out, okay, we know there's going to be problems in this kind of active pursuit of manifesting our dream life, but we're going to figure it out as we go. That's really been a big part of it. So anyway, little life update for you. Also a little disclaimer in case you're hearing the birds or maybe someone turns on the weed whacker or something. That's what's happening on this side of the microphone. Okay, let's dive into today's topic, because I started taking some notes and I just got so excited I wanted to start talking about it right away. So if I'm a little scattered, that's because I have like half a page of notes and I'm just like, I think I can go with this. I think I can really create something good here. So we're talking about setting some massive revenue goals in your business and the importance of doing so. So I find that it's super important to go through a goal setting practice, almost have a regular goal setting practice for yourself when you are running a business. So many of us do this maybe once a year, but we very rarely revisit this practice and do it a little bit more often than once a year. And on top of that, after we usually set our goals for once a year, we don't go back and check on them or measure our progress towards those goals, or really even put those goals up around our homes and make them part of our daily lives, because of so many different reasons. The first thing that I think of, that I go to, is you feel shameful that maybe you're not doing the active work that it takes and requires for you to achieve those goals. Or you feel maybe discouraged that you're not being able to reach those goals in the way that you thought it would be maybe easy to reach those goals. And obviously, if it were easy, it wouldn't be a goal. So that's why we set them. But it's so funny the way that our brains and behavior works is we think, okay, I'm going to go through this process. I'm going to set these goals, and then I'm basically just going to forget them, because if we did put those goals front and center for ourselves, that would feel bad, and we don't like feeling bad. But that's the point. Growth and goal achievement only comes to those who are willing to be uncomfortable. And in some cases, it's making those goals that you've set that one time front and center and facing them and dealing with the discomfort in the moment. And we're going to talk a little bit more about why that's important later on in this episode. But I wanted to also talk about this. Goal setting is something that I'm really passionate about, but doing it very purposefully is also something that's really important to me. I am so over, and this is probably going to trigger some people because I know that this tends to be a big goal for folks. I'm so over setting goals that are just, I would just like to make a 6-figure year or 5-figure months. Those to me are very much vanity numbers. Just like vanity metrics when we're talking about social media followers or likes or whatever those are. These numbers, these 5-figure months, 6-figure years, to me are also very much vanity numbers because they sound so great. But so often when I work with my clients, I find that there's not a lot of purpose behind these numbers. Sure, if you did the math and you figured out, okay, this is how much I need to live and live out my dream life. This is how much my business needs and me to be able to run my dream business. And this is how much I need to be setting aside for Uncle Sam and for maybe business savings. And then you get a 6-figure number, great. But my big gripe with these 5-figure months and 6-figure year kind of goals is that they're very much vanity numbers. They're just saying like, I just want this because it sounds cool. And so often it's really the marketing speak that we hear other, maybe it's online coaches, business coaches specifically, other online marketers who are selling these dreams of the 5-figure month. Yes, it sounds good, but what does that really mean for you? And that's why to me, it's very important to do purpose-driven goal setting and get a purpose-driven revenue goal. That's why I created my Easy Profit Roadmap, because along with showing you how I work with clients one-on-one and step them through my 5-step system to get them to a place where their business is creating profit with ease, and they also feel that managing their business and managing the money in their business and their personal lives is easy. Beyond that, I also give you my Easy Profit Math, which is really telling you how to set a purpose-driven revenue goal, a revenue goal that includes profit, but is also built with purpose because it understands what you need for your personal income needs, being able to live the life that you've been wanting to live from the business that you're building, but on the personal side, and then also being able to afford the business-related expenses that come through running this dream business that you have, using those real life numbers and including them into your revenue goals instead of just assuming that 6 figures is going to be enough. You know what? Maybe 6 figures isn't enough for you. We can determine that. We can also determine if 5-figure months are going to be way too much for you, or if that's also exactly what you need, or if you need more, or if actually to live the life that you really want to live and be happy and fulfilled through your business without having to use this overly fantasized word of hustle, we can figure out what that is going to cost. We can figure out what you actually need, and maybe it's less than what you've been marketed to, this is the I made it moment, having 5 figures per month in your business or 6 figures per year. The reason I'm kind of on my soapbox about these 5-figure month, 6-figure year vanity numbers is just because to me, they're just that. Without putting purpose behind it, without really calculating what it is that you want to attract and bring in terms of money in your business, then any goals that you slap against the wall don't hold motivation. And if you've been doing this business ownership for long enough, you know that you need more than just a number to shoot for. You need that motivation behind it, especially if you've been shooting for a number and you have been falling short every time and you're feeling very stuck. That is why we need to do this work. Okay, so to me, setting a revenue goal is so much more than just saying, I want 5-figure months or a 6-figure a year or whatever that is for you. Maybe it's 6-figure months, who knows? And hoping for that to happen. We need to put purpose behind it. And that's exactly why I created the Easy Profit Roadmap. Again, you can download that. It's totally free. Go to wanderwealthy.com/roadmap. I'll also link it up in the description of this episode. But you can just download my roadmap and go through it. And there's math. And then I even send you a video to walk you through, because if math intimidates you, although I do say it's very easy to figure it out, but I totally know you might need a step-by-step. I provide you a video. I'll send it to you in an email as well once you download the roadmap. Now let's talk about the importance of setting income goals, and not only just goals that will cover the bases, that will help you, live your baseline life, but that will help you reach the dream life that you've been setting out to do. Why is that important? And for me, it's first and foremost because you deserve to make more than quote unquote just enough to get by. Also, aside from that, because you do deserve to live this dream life that you've been building this business probably to afford, you also deserve to make more and to set some big revenue goals, because that means that then you are going to continue to evolve as a person. You're going to continue to evolve as a business owner. And assuming you're making the amount of money that you dream to make in terms of this big, dreamy, massive revenue goal, that also means that you are putting out the value and the service that then in return people are paying you for, and thus you're making that impact that you came here to do. You're providing a product or a service that offers the value that then in return gives you that revenue number. And if it's not a big high ticket item or program or coaching package that you're selling, maybe you're able to hit a lot of more people at a lower ticket number, but you're able to make that impact among many more people. Obviously, there's two very different ways that you can reach the number of people you want to reach and make the impact you want to make in order to get to your revenue goal. It's generally, the math boils down to many people, lower priced item, or a lower amount of people, higher ticket item. And thus that means you're probably getting deeper in there and making those transformations for them. Whatever it is, and we can talk more about how maybe as business owners, especially online coaches, you'd want to look into pricing and packaging and really where you should start focusing and where you might start pivoting to the opposite of whatever you're doing now. We can talk about that in a future episode, but whatever it is, regardless, there's obviously a value transaction. They are providing you with the money that helps you to reach that big dreamy revenue goal, and you are providing them with the value to help make the impact to transform their life. And that is important. And that is also why it's important for you to set these high, massive revenue goals. Because once you do that, then finally, the other big reason why it's important for all of this to happen is because you're going to rise up. Your business is going to rise up and to be able to create whatever it needs to create in order to make this value transaction happen. And just like I said, and I alluded to, you as a person, you're going to have to develop and grow and evolve into this place. And when you do that, your business will do that too. Okay, so we've already talked about why you want to focus on putting purpose behind your big, massive revenue goals and get away from the vanity 5-figure month, 6-figure year type of goals that most people are setting. And I also talked about why it's important for you to set big goals and not just enough to get by, but really set those big goals. The third thing I really want to touch on in this episode is why it is that we avoid our goals altogether after we set them. We have that one big goal setting session, and then we just hope and dream that they're going to happen, and we never really revisit. And I did discuss this in the beginning of the episode, how we really need to adopt and implement a goal setting practice that's much more on a regular basis. I highly recommend doing this every 3 months, basically doing this at the end and a new beginning of the quarters. So that's typically January as we go into the first quarter of the year. Then you would do it again end of March as you go into quarter two, which starts in April. Then you would do it end of June. So we're coming up on the end of the second quarter and do it at the end of June so you can get ready to go into July. And again, then you would do it at the end of September to get ready to go into that final fourth quarter. Now, I think it's okay to do like a really big goal setting session at the beginning of the year if that's really when you like to figure out how am I going to plan out my launches and, how many clients can I take on and what am I going to do a big course, or is it going to be group coaching, or am I just needing to get some retainer business of people just continuing to pay me? Whatever that is, you can do all that big stuff at the beginning of the year. That's great. But again, we need to revisit that and the plan that we've set out for ourselves, as well as how much do we need in revenue? And are we on track with the original goal we set? Or do we need to revisit this and set a new goal for this next quarter and build out from there? The reason you need to do this on a quarterly basis, on a 90-day basis, is because our brains have a really hard time, especially in entrepreneurship, seeing past that 3-month mark. It's like so much can happen in 90 days that it's almost redundant to set a goal past 90 days. Of course, you can set them, you can kind of dream and have visions for them, but having it be a goal that you're going to take action and really work towards getting those results can be really tricky when it's beyond 90 days, just because, especially in this world that we live in, things change so quickly. So having a practice of every 90 days, checking in on your goals, maybe resetting them or tweaking them as you need, can be really good. Also because, and this is something that I've worked tirelessly on with my one-on-one clients in the personal finance side, is the importance of updating your financial goals when you're just looking at your personal life, because even on the personal side of things, so much changes. But especially as an entrepreneur, we need to revisit them, because how many of you have decided, okay, at the beginning of the year, you're like, in June, I'm going to completely revamp this course that I have and relaunch it. And that's really what's going to make my big money come the second half of this year. And then here we are in June, and I'm just speaking from experience because this is something that I told myself at the beginning of the year. I was going to completely revamp a program and relaunch it. And now I'm like, yeah, that's not the route I'm going down anymore. A lot of things have obviously shifted for me in the past year as my own business owner and running my business. And that's again why it's so important to revisit these goals and really only set some of your tangible results-driven goals every 3 months and have them kind of have an end date of 3 months so you can revisit them, measure up, and then go, okay, let's start the clock over and see what we can achieve in the next 3 months from here. Okay, so the reason though that we avoid our goals, we don't have a practice, we don't look at our goals, is because of the way that our brain is wired. Now, I've talked about this on a previous episode, but just as a very, very quick overview, and actually if you listen to episode 109 with April Seifert, we do talk about this a little bit too, and she's got all the information and education around how our brain is wired to protect ourselves. And that's basically it. Our brain is a very smart yet simple organ of ours that we own. It is incredibly intelligent. It's amazing how it can evolve and adapt, and it's been doing so many wonderful things. It's awesome that we can program it and that we can create these amazing things in the world and businesses and deal with stress at a certain level and be able to put our minds and our bodies through so much incredible transformation. However, our default wiring of our brain is very, very simple. It's basically to keep us safe. And unfortunately, now that we're in the modern world, because our default wiring was really, originally created to keep us safe from like the lions and tigers and bears, to keep us safe from threat, to keep us safe from the things that were trying to kill us. Now we live in a world where things are not trying to actively kill us, but our brain still interprets stress and danger and threat the same way. And then, we go into fight or flight mode, essentially. So when we set these big, juicy, massive revenue goals, our brain is going to immediately go into kind of this stress response, because our brain interprets this as, what does this mean that we're going to have to do? It means we're going to have to work harder, and we don't have that time, and Our brain wants to think through and basically try to solve this problem. And once it realizes that it can't solve the problem by just thinking through it and figuring how are we going to go from this current business that we're running and we feel stuck in this income that we're making and we feel like, okay, the only way to make more is I would have to take on more clients, or I would have to work way more hours, or I would have to get a new brain. Our brain starts thinking in that way. And we know if you sit with this for a little bit, you're going to realize you cannot think your way from $50,000 a year to 100. You cannot think your way from $100,000 a year to $1 million. There's no way. That's not how it even works in a business sense, is, increasing your hours worked and sometimes even increasing your prices, doing everything else the same to get to that point. We have to get creative. But our brain wants to take the easy way out because it wants to keep us safe. It wants to keep us healthy. It wants us to keep us alive. So it's not going to think, okay, we need to go into creative, innovative mission control. It's going to go into default. Yeah, this isn't going to happen. I'm just going to avoid this altogether. And that is why we avoid checking in. We avoid having a regular practice of setting and evolving and analyzing and resetting our own goals on a regular basis. And that's also why we avoid looking at our goals, why we avoid keeping them front and center, and why we avoid measuring and tracking and even sometimes taking action to make those goals a reality. Because our initial instinct, our default, is to go into, yeah, this isn't going to work. It's too hard. Let's just ignore it altogether. Now, there's not really a magic formula to get yourself out of avoidance. Again, being uncomfortable is the only way you're going to get through the process of achieving your goals and ultimately achieve your goals, is facing that uncomfortable state. And one part of discomfort is making your goals front and center, keeping them in your mind, and essentially forcing yourself to go through a goal setting practice on a more regular basis. Now, the reason why that is so important, though, is because your brain no longer will be able to go, this is too hard. I don't want to figure it out. We're going to override that and tap into the subconscious, which is going to then be feeding yourself by keeping your numbers front and center. Your default brain is going to look at that and go, that's too hard. But you're going to keep looking at these numbers. And instead of trying to use your brain to think your way to the possibility, your subconscious mind is going to go to work. You're giving your brain something to go after. You're giving it something to look for, to figure out. And this is something that, again, we talked about on the last podcast with April. She talked to us about how our brain is really good at finding something. It's really bad at looking. And so if you give your brain something, a number, and yes, you're going to be looking at it physically, but if you start feeding it that information that this is what we are going after, this is what we are seeking, your subconscious mind is going to go to work to try to figure out, okay, what do I need to do to get so creative, to get so innovative, to start thinking outside of just how can I work more hours? How can I charge more doing the same thing that I'm still doing? How can I take on more clients, or whatever way your conscious brain is going to try to think its way through, basically try to math its way there. We need to get past that. We need to override that. And the only way you can override your brain from consciously trying to figure it out is to tap into the subconscious. And the only way to really regularly be tapping into the subconscious to help your whole brain go to work for you and figure out in a more innovative, creative, visionary way to get to that ultimate goal is to keep that goal front and center. And that is why I have my income, my revenue goals put up on Post-it notes and put around my house. That is why I have a regular goal setting practice. That is why I set purpose-driven revenue goals too, because then when I have those numbers front and center, I can really tell myself, this is why you're doing this, because you want to be able to live for 3 to 6 months in the south of Italy, or because you want to be able to fly home back to the States whenever you want or you need to, or because you want to be able to go to these conferences, or because you want to be able to hire this administrative assistant, or because you want to be able to put $1,000 a month into retirement retirement savings, whether it's in a retirement account or it's in just a taxable investment account, which is something we can always talk about in another podcast. Don't worry. I got that figured out for you guys. But for me, I have my goals outlined. I know exactly what I need. And those are what help me from both my personal life and my business life. Those two things, those goals in terms of the smaller stuff that I want to implement into my life and my business are what feed my revenue goals. And then my revenue goals, I take those and I put them around my house and I put them front and center. And I have a regular practice of revisiting them and seeing, am I on track? Am I in pursuit of these goals? Am I actively doing things that are going to get me the results and these 3-month results rather than this year-long result? Of course, I'll have a year-long goal ultimately, but I also break it up into 3 months because then I can more knowingly figure out if what I've done over the course of the past 3 months has gotten me to where I want to be today, and what I'm going to do over the next 3 months is going to get me where I want to be by the end of that quarter. So this is just a snippet of why it's so important that we set our goals and why we have a practice of revisiting them, as well as why we should keep our goals front and center, and for you to better understand why we by default avoid checking our goals, and why when you think about like, oh, I should probably look at that and see if I'm on track with that, you get that gut achy feeling of like, oh, but I know I'm not there and I don't want to see that. And this is something that I find happens so often. So if you resonate with it, it's because most of us go through this feeling when we feel like we're not on track to achieve something. And for a lot of my clients, they're way better off than they thought they were. But if we feel like, oh, I'm not doing a good job or I'm just too far gone and we don't check, the truth is we have no idea where we're at. And if you can more regularly check in on yourself with your progress towards your goals, or with your spending if it's on the personal side, or with your saving, or whatever it is financially and even beyond your finances, if you can more regularly track your progress and see how things are going, that gives you, first of all, the information you need to make sure that what you do today or tomorrow is on track as well. And it allows you to not get so far behind and not have to do all this work to catch up. And it doesn't any longer feel daunting or overwhelming. Even if you aren't quite there, knowing where you're at is so much better than avoiding checking up on it, avoiding tracking, avoiding the measuring, and ultimately getting to 3 months, 6 months, or 1 year from now, looking back over the past year, having to spend all that time basically consolidating that information and pulling it together, and then going, oh, I guess that's where I ended up. You should know where you're at. Really, we should all know where we're at, but so many of us avoid because it's our default. Our brain is thinking, oh my gosh, no, that's way too much pressure to put on myself. I need to then think my way through how I'm going to do all this work or get more clients or raise my prices with what I'm doing now. And we get into overwhelm and then we go into avoidance. So knowing that that's your default and knowing that you just have to force it upon yourself in a way, and I know that probably sounds like that's a trigger word, I'm sure, but if you bring it to the forefront and you make it obvious and front and center of mind, and then you have a regular practice, a schedule where you put it in your calendar and you set a reminder, and then you sit down every single month or every single quarter, depending on how you want to set your goals and how you want to check in on yourself, that is going to help you immensely. So that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot more that I want to talk about in a future episode regarding why we need to set personal goals first before we can go into our business goals. And that's something that I'm going to talk about in a coming episode. But from this and just this knowing what you know now after this episode, I highly encourage you to sit down with the Easy Profit Roadmap, do the Easy Profit math to figure out your purpose-driven revenue goal, and use that as a catalyst to speak to your subconscious mind. You have to override the conscious mind. The conscious mind is going to want to go off on like, okay, how am I going to figure this out? You just got to face it, deal with that discomfort, and then go, okay, but we're not going to worry about that. We're going to just keep this number front and center and keep our regular practice schedule so that we can keep revisiting this, but also keep that number out so that your subconscious mind, you can tap into that, and that's going to go to work for you, basically on autopilot. And someday you might go, oh shit, that's how I make that money. Oh my gosh, I got it. I figured it out. And that happens so much more often than I think we give ourselves credit for. So download the Easy Profit Roadmap. You can go to wanderwealthy.com/roadmap to get at it. Again, I walk you through how to do the easy profit math on I think it's the 3rd page, and I will send you an email in a couple hours after you download the roadmap with a video that'll walk you through it so that you feel supported and you know exactly how to fill that out. And that will give you your ultimate purpose-driven revenue goal. Okay, I'm going to leave it at that. I hope this was helpful. If you're listening on your phone, I would love it if you shared on Instagram. You can tag me at Tess_Wicks. Share it in your stories or take a screenshot and put it in your feed. Tag me and send me a DM if you guys have any questions about money in your personal life as you are running a business or within your business. I want to know. So I hope to see you downloading your Easy Profit Roadmap and calculating your Easy Profit math. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me via DM on Instagram, Tess_Wicks. And until next time, I hope you wander wealthy.